Barrie.
Welcome to Educate, Inform, Challenge. My name is Teresa MacLennan. I'm the Executive Director of the Women and Children's Shelter of Barrie. We are so thankful that you are here with us today. The purpose of our show is to talk about the lives and experiences of women. We talk about such topics as gender equity, violence against women, women in positions of leadership and decision making. So we're very thankful that you are coming along this journey and having these discussions with us. Before we begin, we do want to acknowledge and thank our Indigenous community and partners for allowing us to share in this space, on this land, to have these conversations. We thank you so much for your leadership and complete respect of your history. Thank you. So without further ado, I am very happy to introduce our guest speaker today, Katie Taylor, and I'm going to let Katie introduce herself and then we'll dive into our conversation today. Welcome, Katie.
Thanks, Teresa.
So tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and your role here at the shelter.
Certainly. So I am Katie Taylor. I am the Development Manager here at the Women and Children's Shelter of Barrie. I've been in this role just a year, and so I'm very proud of being involved in this team. So my responsibilities as the Development Manager include building connections in our community and beyond with a focus of fundraising and donations. Of course, volunteerism and community awareness are also incredibly important to this role and just as vital.
It seems like a very large role, and certainly, you know, as the executive director, and we work here together, it is challenging, I should imagine, to build that awareness and to also raise the funds needed for our shelter.
Yes, we definitely don't stop. Mm-hmm. Certainly when it does come with to any opportunity to talk about our agency and the work that we do value any opportunity. We're also very fortunate to have people in the community always participating or creating third-party events. So even if it's not a signature fundraising event that we're hosting, we're always involved in many different facets in the community.
So that is a great segue into what we're going to dive into today when you're talking about needing to build that community awareness. So we know that November is Women Abuse Prevention Month. So can you explain for our viewers, firstly, why do we need to have a month that is specifically set aside for that purpose?
So I'm sure you can agree 1 month through 12 months in a year is certainly not enough. Of course, we do work in this line of work. So I would suggest that we do need more than a month. Our agency has just recognized its 40th year of providing services and support to our community, 40 years. Mm-hmm. And we know that intimate partner violence was happening far beyond that time that our agency had been in existence. But now it's being discussed in great lengths. The increase in the amount of women and children that reach out for help, the complexities that the women and children are using our services are experiencing, and the intensity of those types of abuse. So more than ever, we are able to use our voices, so we collectively need to use our voices.
So I think it's really great that you've highlighted that, yes, as a shelter, we've been providing service for 40 years here in the city of Barrie, and certainly I think you and I would agree, we would really like to not be here for another 40 years, because that would mean that we've actually done and made an impact in that we've ended violence against women. But it doesn't seem to look that way, that our services would not be needed anytime soon. Can you talk to our viewers, talk to us about why are we still seeing that increase in numbers? Like what is happening?
So of course, first and foremost, Barrie is one of Canada's largest growing municipalities and has been for several decades now. We see women and their children moving to Simcoe County from other cities in Ontario, other provinces, and of course other countries. Sometimes a new community that brings the women and children here creates a new beginning, so women will feel the need to reach out. Some women from other countries come with cultures and practices, including arranged marriages and what it means to be a wife or a mother. All it takes is for that woman to be referred to us or for that woman to seek help, And so we also continue to see an incredible rise in human trafficking. We continue to see women and young girls in our community being used and exploited. These examples are all in addition to the many women and children that have been living and continue to live in fear in their own abusive household in our community for years and decided to seek help and refuge.
And those are great points that I think, would just be great knowledge for our community to know. And I think that also our viewers have probably heard me mention a couple of times that, 10 years ago, a woman would have stayed in our shelter for maybe 6 weeks. Now she may stay here for 6 months because there's such a lack of affordable housing. And if she is an immigrant or refugee woman who has no status, what we know is that it can take years, and that's certainly our experience here in the shelter. For immigrant women, they are staying much, much longer because without status, they are not able to apply for Ontario Works. Without Ontario Works, they cannot apply for affordable housing.
What are their options?
What are their options, right? And so we have certainly seen, definitely, as you mentioned, an increase in the population, an increase in immigrant refugee women who are needing to stay much longer. We know that there's a great shortage of affordable housing for all women. And so being able to leave the shelter, the stays are that much longer now. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
And we also recognize, as you mentioned, what an incredible increase we are seeing of the amount of women who are experiencing human trafficking. So much so that we have now pulled out 2 of our beds so that we have 2 dedicated spaces for women who are experiencing that trafficking. We know when we get that call from the police who say, I have a woman who's being trafficked, she's able to leave, can we bring her? We want to try and have that space available. So I think all of the things that you've talked about are so key because we want our community to know that there's still this incredible issue right here in our community.
Absolutely, and that these complexities just continue to increase.
Yeah. Which brings us to Women Abuse Prevention Month, because why is it so important that we do that campaign? Why is it so important that we share that information with the community?
Knowledge is power. So the more people in our community that know our work and how we can help the very women they are friends, cousins, coworkers, neighbors with, the more folks that will become involved. And involvement can mean so many different things to someone. Involvement can mean a donor. Involvement can mean a volunteer in different ways. You can invite our agency to speak to your community church or group or business or at your children's school. Talking about violence against women from a preventative dialogue is great, but it can't just be women lifting up other women. We must do it with our men's voices, with our children's voices. We must hear young girls and strong women with lived experience be brave and tell their stories. These stories become examples for other women who may be experiencing the abuse and haven't found a way out. They become a stepping stone in a woman's journey. The more we talk as men and women, as families and schools, as a city and a county, we continue to expose the truth.
So I know that you do a lot of talking out in the community. You talk to businesses, you talk to other community groups who have an interest to know what it is that we do. When you are able to have those conversations with people, what change do you see in them in terms of their knowledge and then wanting to become involved with us? Like, what impact does that have?
You know, it's quite significant. People, when they mention that phrase, I want to be more involved, I don't even know if they understand the capacity in which they can become involved, and don't really know or understand the full scope of the work that we do. Some people have in their own families, whether it might necessarily have happened to them, but they have a family member or a close friend that had experienced intimate partner violence, so they might have an insight as to what that means. Other people who haven't experienced that really have no concept of some of the experiences that women come by. So being able to again expose those stories and reflections, and to directly relate that in how we support those women. I think that's first and foremost very empowering for that individual.
Sure.
And then offering all the ways in which people can give back. And so I had just listed a few of those, but we can talk about it a little bit more in this campaign as well.
Yeah, and I think that we'll dive into that, certainly. And we are going to be heading into a break soon, but I love that you said knowledge is power, because we know that folks really don't know what happens here at the shelter. And the more that we can educate them about the experience of women and how we support them, that is the knowledge, and that is the power that people hold, and knowing that they could contribute to that, they can make a difference in the lives of women. And I love that saying also, because really that encompasses our show. We want to educate our viewers and our community. We want them to be armed with the knowledge about what's happening right here in their community, because as you say, a lot of folks would think, you know what, violence has never impacted me personally. I don't think I've ever really known anybody. So the more we can educate, the more we talk about our awareness campaigns, we know that we're building that knowledge. So we are going to have much more dialogue about this, and I just really appreciate the knowledge that you've already shared with our community. So stay with us. We're going to be right back, and we look forward to continuing this conversation with Katie Taylor. We'll see you soon.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Honey, you need to be able to stand up for what's important to you.
Get on the floor!
Why did you help us?
Your mission is to destroy every trace of something known only as Project Starfish.
This is suicide.
Well, that's kind of our thing.
That's my dad.
Welcome back. We are talking today with Katie Taylor, the Development Manager here at the Women and Children's Shelter of Barrie, and we're talking about the importance and the need for awareness campaigns. And one of those in November is Women Abuse Prevention Month. So Katie, welcome back, and we're really looking forward to talking more about that campaign. So can you tell us how do you go about that particular campaign for November? And I'm wearing my purple scarf today, so I know you're going to talk a little bit about that. So tell us what things happen for that month of November.
So, as you mentioned, November is the the
Women Abuse Prevention Month.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to get all my dates right. November 25th, we have the International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women. And November 25th kicks off our 16 Days of Activism and leads right into December 10th, which is International Human Rights Day. And so the 16 Days of Activism was started back in 1991 by activists in the inaugural Women's Global Leadership Institute. And so this has been a globally recognized campaign and definitely something that we have taken and we have developed to our own and included the community to do so. So we engage public figures, we engage schools, we engage community partners, anybody who is interested in making their own pledge and what it may mean to them to end violence against women.
So part of the awareness campaign leads into what is your call to action going to be? Is that kind of what you're saying then?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how we as community members can do things differently, and maybe we'll get a chance to talk about some examples of what that could be.
Absolutely.
Can you talk about this lovely purple scarf that I'm wearing?
Absolutely.
And how does this tie into the campaign?
So in addition to the awareness piece, we have developed a fundraiser because just as important as the awareness, we do need funds to be able to do the work that we do. So our Wrapped in Courage campaign, we are selling scarves and neckties. We're hoping the addition of bow ties this year, and the color of purple. And so this symbols the courage it takes for a woman to leave her abuser. And we know that it is not enough for just the woman to have that strength and courage. So we encourage the community to make that purchase, to essentially donate that money to the shelter and wear that symbol, and to show women in the community that might be struggling to leave their abuser that we believe them and that we stand with them. And then, of course, to the survivors in our community that we're standing alongside them in their journey.
Okay, so I think that's great. I want to kind of break it down a little bit. So we wear purple because I believe that is the color of the violence against women sector as well. And wrapping yourself in a scarf, and please correct me and fill in the gaps for me. We wear the purple scarf as that display of wrapping courage around women. And we want folks in the community to wear their scarf, wear their tie, to show their support to work towards ending violence against women. Have I kind of covered all of those pieces? Because it is so important to, and then we ask the community to purchase a scarf, a tie. You're hoping for bow ties this year, which I think would be fantastic. Because I guess for the month of November, are we hoping to see a flood of purple within the city of Barrie?
We hope so. Yeah. You know what? We say we hope so, but every year the community always does rally behind us.
Great.
And last year we unfortunately weren't able to come together in person. We are hoping November 25th we also do raise our flags at City Hall. Okay. So there will be a proclamation happening at City Hall November 25th. And so even with the void of potentially being in person, we'd love to see the purple merchandise, the purple scarves and ties being displayed proudly across the city.
Super. So there's a couple of things that I want to talk about. So I want to talk about how people can show their own call to action. But first, I think it might be good for our viewers to understand the funds that are raised. How do they get used?
Certainly. So we are a 27-bed aging facility. So our shelter, it costs a great deal to run it every day, and not to mention the upkeep and the maintenance. So the cost of the women and children, their daily needs are covered by the funds that we raise. The programs and services that we offer, the support, all of the money goes into goes towards that. So anytime you purchase any item from us, you can guarantee that money is going directly back into the supports and services that the women and children are receiving.
Okay, so I want to make sure I'm really clear about that, because I think it's really helpful again for our community to know that when women and children arrive here in the shelter, they usually come with nothing.
Nothing. That's right.
Right. And so we provide everything for them at that point. So,
and as you mentioned, the time that women and children stay here is no longer 1 to 3 months. It's 6 to 8 months and beyond. Yeah. And so as the women are trying to continue on their journey, and so that might include trying to gain financial control, but the reality is they're still dealing with what they're dealing with, and so we take that responsibility, and so it becomes very costly.
So everything from paying the bills to keep the lights on, to maintenance of this very large shelter space, it's food, it's hygiene, it's school supplies, it's clothing.
Yep.
It's everything.
It's everything.
So I think that's just really helpful for folks to understand. And I heard you say that, yes, we are partially funded for 27 beds, but we run closer to 35 at any given time. So our fundraising needs are so incredible. And that is quite the job that you have, to try and, one, build the awareness in the community, but raise the funds that are needed for the shelter. So it just really speaks to the importance of this campaign, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I know you've talked a little bit about the 16 Days of Activism and wanting folks in the community to wear their scarves, wear their ties, hopefully bow ties, and to have that recognition and flood the city of Barrie with purple scarves. How do we encourage, how do we get folks to also tell us what their call to action is going to be? And what examples would that be? Because some people may not know, well, I don't know what I could do to end violence against women. And sometimes if we tell them, well, this is something that you could do, it really helps them.
Absolutely.
So talk to us about that.
I'm glad that you mentioned that because, of course, we're asking for the folks to wear their scarves and their ties. And again, because we have been void of meeting together in person, so a lot of these campaigns have been completed online. And so we ask to definitely utilize your social presence, your social media presence, which is something that we've been very successful in doing in creating this conversation. So number one, to be able to, whatever your call to action may be, and I'll give you an example. I am a mother of 2 young boys, and so my call to action this year will be to ensure that I am raising my 2 young boys to respect their peers in across the board. So not just respecting young women and girls, but respecting across the board. And so having those conversations even at a very young age, it could be as simple as that. And it could be, that you don't necessarily want to post that, but perhaps that's inspiration for somebody else, that this could be the very beginning, the tipping point. This could be the beginning of a much larger conversation. So it's having those thoughts and then being brave enough to post or to share it with other people and to have those people be inspired. And so it's really all about the conversation that you're starting and creating.
I love what you said because we know that it takes the voice of women and men to end violence against women and to speak up. And, women have been using their voices for years and years to talk about violence against women and the prevalence. We know that men do have an experience of abuse, but it is far less than the rates of women. But we need men to stand up and say, I'm not going to condone that violence anymore. I'm going to use my voice to stand out against that. And I love also the idea of you offering that example of your 2 boys, because we know having early conversations with young boys and young girls about respect for gender, respect for young women and their contributions, about ending violence. We need those voices, but we have to start with educating our youth in order to do that. If you think about an adult male, do you have thoughts or an example of how they might do a call to action?
Absolutely. I saw 2 great examples last year. And one of the signs that I saw was standing up for derogatory jokes towards women in the workplace. And, we can, again, chalk it up to culture or old boys clubs or whatever it is that we want to excuse behavior and language. But, certainly 2020 and 2021 have been very important years for us to stand up and say enough is enough. And so if just one person starts that conversation, and again, I'm still thinking about that one sign to this day. And so violence against women doesn't just happen. And so men specifically need to be a part of this conversation in such a preventative way.
And we are going to be having another discussion, another show down the road where we're going to be talking about December 6th, the Day of Remembrance. But part of that day came out from a white ribbon campaign, which was men wearing white ribbons to say that they want to put an end to violence against women. So we know that there's been a lot of action and activity in terms of men's voices to try and end violence against women. And of course, you and I agree 100% how much we need that. I know you did mention about the example of talking to your two boys and the importance of youth, and I'm just wondering, can you say something about our violence prevention program and maybe just quickly what that is to educate our community? Because I want our community to know the work we're doing to try and have those early conversations with youth.
Absolutely. So our violence prevention program, we are currently reaching youth age 12 to 18, and we talk about all different topics of conversation. So boundary settings, rape culture, and you know, just the importance of really having the youth be a part of that conversation. And I know we've already been in the schools for I think a year and a half, and it's been really interesting to hear the facilitators who are being taught from the children. We think that we are, you know, we're going into these schools and talking to the youth, but the youth have so much to teach us. And so I think that's just as important, is to just keep such an open mind and open dialogue, because it is very fluid, this discussion, and so to be able to learn from different parties and to take that information, as we said, knowledge is power, but you also don't know what you don't know. So being able to communicate with the youth on their level and talk about real challenging, sometimes dark conversations. You have to have those conversations. So we're very proud to be able to have this program and to be able to talk to the youth on that level.
And it is so respectful for us to be where the kids are at. So, you know, I feel like there is so much that we could talk about. So we only have about a minute left. So if someone wants to purchase a lovely scarf and really show their support for our agency, how do they go about it? What's the best way to contact you or to get that information?
So the best way would be to go to our website, barrieshelter.com. We do have an area on our website called Shop Shelter, which you will be able to find all the merchandise that we have available for sale. And so you'll be able to find those items for Wrapped in Courage. You also alternatively could call the office at 705-728-6300 and speak with myself, Katie, or our community admin, Katie. We're two Katies, but very pleased to help facilitate that. Absolutely.
Super. And I believe we'll also share your email address.
Absolutely.
Which is Katie, Katie
at barrieshelter.com.
And that is where you can go to, check out our website for sure. Email Katie. We really, really encourage you to become involved in November's Women Abuse Prevention Month. Again, we thank Katie for being with us here today. We thank our community for being with us. We thank you that you are open to having dialogue, conversation, and that we challenge our thinking about what we know to be true. We will see you again next time. Thank you for being with us. Take care.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
It's my favorite thing in the whole world.
Come home for the holidays.
Merry Christmas.
With Hallmark Channel's Countdown to Christmas.
When you walk through the door and the feeling is right, here together is what makes